Today we're speaking with Amanda McGrail, and we are happy that she agreed to come in. Thank you, Amanda. I just, have forgotten if you've told me how you came to St. Joe's. I mean, I know you're not that long here. I mean, you haven't been here that long.
So I moved to Maryland in 2013. I was going to another parish for several years. And I don't want to badmouth the other parish, but something just wasn't clicking. And I was starting to get really, really frustrated. And so I was talking to my mom, and she's like, when we come out to see you, we always drive past this other Catholic church out in Eldersburg. You should go out there and check them out. And I didn't even hang out in Eldersburg, so it's like, Eldersburg, where's that? I didn't even realize where St. Joe's was. I got lost the first time. I think that was back in 2017. So I've been coming to St. Joe's ever since.
No kidding. Yeah. Wow. Didn't think it was that long. Wow. Okay, so your mom told you about it.
Yep.
Now, they don't live here now. So
they don't.
Folks, okay. All right.
They take 26 when they drive.
All right. So where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Steubenville.
Oh, Steubenville's very famous, right? So I'm sure that you were attending somewhere around there. You grew up Catholic, did you?
I grew up Catholic, cradle Catholic. Went to Catholic grade school, Catholic high school. I did not go to Franciscan, which is a very common question. People then ask, why not? They didn't have engineering.
Oh, that's right.
So I went to the University of Akron and then did grad school at West Virginia and then made my way over here.
Okay. So, I realize my own stereotyping when I think of women engineers. And so how did engineering pop into view for you as a major?
Don't 100% know. I always liked math and science. And I figured out when I was a kid that I liked airplanes, space, that kind of thing. And then by the time I got to 8th grade, I kind of put 2 and 2 together that somebody has to design them. And put together that those people were engineers. And in 8th grade, I announced to my parents I was going to be an engineer, and it stuck. It stuck.
Wow, good for you. Well, so tell me about how it was growing up Catholic with doing all of that stuff, especially in the shadows, doing did you sense a deep faith early, or when did that seem to sort of take hold for you?
So people always ask, what's it like growing up in Steubenville? And my honest answer is, I don't know, because it's my only frame of reference. But like I said, I went to Catholic grade school, Catholic high school. My parents were involved in our parish. So all the major events in my life took place in and around church. Praying before class was normal.
Sure.
Praying before a sports game was normal.
Right.
Graduation took place at church. Everything was integrated. There was no boundary between faith life and your daily life.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't notice a difference until I went to college.
That's usually the trigger for everybody. I don't know what. Well, of course I do. You leave your home. So,
and it wasn't weird at first. Most people were very supportive. Like said, I'm Catholic, and they're like, okay, cool. But I think that's part of the your truth, my truth. I was Catholic, that was my truth. They weren't, that was their truth. So everyone was just accepting of it. But the longer I was away and faith wasn't an integrated part of your daily life, that's when it got harder and harder.
What got harder? Living life without it, or living life with something so different?
I think when I say harder, I never walked away from the faith, never stopped practicing, but it became more and more of an isolated part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't that you pray before class. Obviously you don't, because you're in a public school. So it just became an isolated, segmented part of my life up until the point where people didn't know. I had somehow managed to compartmentalize school, work, and faith.
So people didn't know you were Catholic?
At some point, yeah. It just never became a topic of conversation.
So did you go searching while you were still in college, or when did it become something that you needed to go find again?
After after I graduated undergrad was a pretty tough time in my life. My aunt passed away shortly after I graduated. And that kind of, I was working. Like, so I graduated, I had a job. She passed away. And that was just a long grieving period. But that time also gave me a lot of time to just figure things out again. And I actually moved to a new town, so I didn't know anybody. And one day I get a random Facebook request. I was like, I don't know this person. I'm not going to accept it. But I noticed that she was a friend of my best friend. So I was like, okay, well, if
She's safe.
yeah,
Okay.
if the other Amanda approves, my best friend's name's Amanda.
No.
Then this person must be okay. So I accepted the invite, and she actually grew up in that town. Was still living there, went to the local Catholic church, so invited me to young adult night.
Wow.
And she kind of kept me going to church, kept me grounded until I made the decision to go back to grad school. And so she slowly started to pull me back into it. And it's been a journey ever since.
Yeah. So tell us about that journey ever since. I mean, did you feel like you owned it, or were you still a little outside of having it deep inside?
Still very compartmentalized.
Yeah.
But I think it's just part of the job descriptions. Or when you're an engineer, there's just not a lot of faith-based anything. A lot of the people I work with are agnostic or atheists.
I don't think it's just engineering. I think it's human. Just that's my humble opinion. But I think a lot of people compartmentalize, and I think I've heard, Father John preach about that. It becomes just this part, but not a whole. So go ahead.
It's so easy to do.
It is.
And it's almost like a self-protection measure.
I know. What do you mean by that?
Sometimes being different can be uncomfortable. And so it's just easier just to be like, compartmentalize this, and I never have to deal with.
Okay, so not everybody knows everything.
You're
Right.
But St. Joe's, I think there was like pre-COVID and post-COVID.
True.
Right before COVID, I was doing Discovering Christ. That's where I met Kim and Rachel, and I think you maybe for the first time. And then COVID, and I kind of started getting involved with faith formation because I could do that from home. And once we started coming back, I had been helping out. Pedro wanted to meet because I was just the face or a name on a computer screen. And so we met, and anyone who's met Pedro knows that's a life-changing event. So
yeah, tell us what changed there.
So Pedro and I started talking, and he asked, what are you looking for? And I was like, I would love the courage to not compartmentalize anymore. And it's still not a complete project, but it's been getting better.
I don't know if anybody ever
It's like
on the planet, right?
But then he also, I think, reintroduced me to Kim, and Kim has started inviting me to women's group, which has been phenomenal. And so post-COVID, it's just really accelerated.
So how would you describe the non-compartmentalized part of you? How have you been integrating it?
It's still hard at work, but I'm less protective. Like, I'll take a break during the day to pray, or I don't care if someone sees me pray before I eat at my desk. But even just like I'm in women's group, I used to be so compartmentalized that I would not share. I just sit and listen. And so even there, I'm just slowly starting to open back up.
Yeah, there's a vulnerability, I guess, we're talking about here, right? By being vulnerable to talk about how Jesus fits in, what he means, that kind of thing. Is that part of what you mean?
In terms of women's group or just
anywhere in general?
Yeah, I think it is, and it shouldn't be a women's group. But yeah, there's just that, and like I don't know where it comes from, but there's that vulnerability of they won't get me.
So you don't need to protect yourself.
Right. And I think ever since I left, when I was in Steubenville back home, there was this sense that people got you. And even if they didn't, I never ran into animosity.
Mm.
And so when you're in college and you first meet up with people that don't like Catholicism or have really bad feelings against it, that slowly starts to change
Yeah. It gets scarier.
It does. Yeah. It went from there was no reason to be scared to, oh, not everybody is.
Yeah. I'm wondering if that's part of the Steubenville effect.
I think it might be.
I think so, because I guess in my experience, I grew up Protestant, and it still comes down to, I guess, this us-them thing, right?
Well, it's so my mom didn't grow up Catholic, so half my family isn't Catholic.
Same here. Well, mostly of this.
And then I've also got a lot of friends, family friends that aren't Catholic. So even there, there was never animosity.
Right.
Everyone was completely accepting. They never gave you a hard time about it.
Right.
So, and I don't know if that's also a Steubenville thing or that was just we're family, so it's okay.
Well, it's just, again, it's a human thing, probably no matter where we are, being vulnerable and having people, like you say, when you first said, get you, I thought it means, sorry, the updated version of get you means understand you.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So, yeah. And we all want to be understood and, not be seen as an alien.
Right.
Right. I mean, I grew up as an Army brat and always felt like an alien because I moved so many times, always a new kid. And
it's got weird.
Yeah, they're sort of like, oh, what are you? So I think that's true for a lot of us, that we just want to be understood. Right. And to work so hard at doing it.
Exactly.
Well, your experience now here has been, I guess now since you told me, 7 years.
Oh my goodness.
Right? 7?
That's what the Bible says.
Yeah. So what kinds of things can you point to about the Mass that's particularly meaningful? Any particular part that is your favorite? I always like to ask people that. I know this is a pop quiz, right?
Music is always mine.
Really?
Yeah, so it's not any particular part of the Mass, but I've always enjoyed music. Loved it growing up. The people that did music at our church growing up, just incredibly talented. And she was my music teacher, so I just grew up loving music. And so there's some songs more than others that I love, but just any.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're musical.
Do.
All right, let's hear it. What do you do? Do you sing? Do you play instruments?
No singing.
No singing. Okay.
But I did play the trumpet in high school. So
okay.
Yeah.
So the music is important to you.
Love the music.
Mm-hmm. Now, I've been a part of the choir, and so I know Father John loves music, and he likes. I mean, how does music take you to God? Is there a particular thing that transports you, or what you think or feel when the music is happening?
It's more of a feeling. I don't know if there's anything. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah. Well, it's probably a dumb question, because I've heard that if you have to explain it, then it wouldn't be music. Meaning, if you have to put words to it, right? Does that make sense?
I think then maybe part of it is it just gets me out of my head. and I stop thinking and I'm just listening.
That's very good. Yeah, I think that's what it's meant to do, to speak to our heart, right? Well, in the masses that you've gone to here, have there been, I don't know what I'm trying to say, other things about the Eucharist that you might point to? And, the Eucharist being the heart of being Catholic, that growing up Catholic has always been meaningful. I mean, is there any part of that, the Eucharist part of the Mass? I mean, I feel like I'm still learning a lot about the Eucharist. And so I guess I'm picking your brain here. Help me understand the Eucharist just a little bit more.
Tell you what, I think sometimes Catholics take it for granted. And so it's hard to, it shouldn't be hard. That sounds crazy. But it's hard to remember how special and incredibly important it is.
Yeah. Well, it is I guess the focal point, or the highest point of the Mass in that regard. Yeah. And I grew up without that being true. And it seems like, more and more I'm getting to understand this is my body. I mean, I mull over that for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And to have that come into us, I mean, I'm still getting that. Still trying to get that through my head. Of course, it's a mystery, so I shouldn't try too hard, right?
Yeah, we should not feel bad when we do not get. I tell you what, though, I didn't grow up with a perpetual adoration chapel. So having that at St. Joe's, I think for like the last year and a half, adoration has been something I try to incorporate at least once a week.
Wow.
And it started with a holy 20 minutes because I was like, there's no way I can survive an hour.
I know, it's hard.
And now I easily stay an hour and I absolutely love it. That has been the driving factor, I guess, in the last year and a half.
I think that's another mystery, right? How you can sit for an hour, right?
Just listen.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's a very special piece that I think a lot of people have yet to discover.
And I think I was scared, 5-6 years before I even really took advantage of it.
Well, I hope people are listening, because this is like,
it's at the Adoration Chapel.
There we go. There's your commercial. Yeah. Yeah. Well, what are some things that you hope for in your own learning? Are there areas that you want to dive more into? Areas of your faith, areas of Catholicism, things that are challenging you to read more about?
So my biggest challenge has been to get out of my head and make it more of a personal heart relationship. So I've been trying to because I just love to read. So I'll read anything. I was like, I actually had a moment where I was talking to a bunch of people and they're like, yeah, I want to read these books. I was like, I'm right there with you. And I'll never forget it. I just heard in my head, you don't need any more books. You don't need any more reading. You just need to spend time with me. And so that's when I started going to adoration. So I haven't taken on a whole lot of books recently. I've been trying to focus more on going to women's group, trying to really work on that courage and be compartmentalized.
Yeah.
In my life.
All of those themes come back, don't they? There is a head and there is heart. Those are compartments, I guess. Right. And so we have to always work towards that unity, which is so difficult. Well, a lot of ways to learn, and learning, taking your heart to adoration sounds like a big one. Take the rest of you too, obviously, but yeah. Well, so I'm curious, Amanda, why did you feel like you wanted to do this interview today? Any particular reason?
At first, I was like, oh, I don't know. that sounds like a horrible idea. But I've heard Father John say it so many times. Our stories aren't our own. We're supposed to share them. And being vulnerable is hard. So I was like, I'm going to suck it up and I'm going to do it.
You're doing great, by the way. Well, what else would you want people to know about Amanda?
Oh, no.
Or encouraging the next person to come forward and have an interview. What would you say?
It's not as scary as you think it is.
We don't bite.
Yeah. No biting.
Yeah. Well, thank you. We've enjoyed having you and sharing your heart. You've been vulnerable, and that's a very special gift to everybody listening. So thank you. Yeah. And so we invite you to come and be vulnerable. We don't bite, and share your story.